Chapter 14, the 5/7 chord. That is the 4-note chord built off of scale degree 5 that has a function of leading to the primary chord of the key. So if our primary chord, I'm going to turn myself down a little bit, is that, then we're talking about the chord that leads to it. Now, it's important to note that if you're, say, not a classical musician and you're watching this, a lot of popular music has found a way to circumvent the dominant triad, which is the one that leads to the primary triad of a key, or chord, I guess is the word I should be using. Yeah, the 5/7 chord, built on scale degree 5, which is when you play a scale, you stop on scale degree 5. It has a function of wanting to lead back to scale degree 1. So that's all stuff for people who aren't in the class, anyone who's watching online and wants to learn. A lot of popular music has found a way to circumvent the use of the dominant to lead back to the tonic, which is scale degree 1. For example, you might do this a lot. That was the 4 chord, and then scale degree 4 in the bass. Maybe I could do scale degree 5 in the bass. That's referred to as replacement 5, which I've talked about in previous lectures. But the important thing is, in classical music, it was a very, very important way to get back to scale degree 1. So what we're going to do today is talk about when we add the 7th. So we have the dominant triad. We're going to add one more note. So when you have your scale, I'm going to put a little line wherever the half steps are. A diatonic scale is built around where the half steps are, and there's only going to be 2 of them. And it's going to be some spacing relative to what you're looking at right here. So our tonic triad is here, and what you've got here is major solfege. So this is a major triad. 5 starts on scale degree 5. The triad of 5 is, as such, built on the 5th scale degree, and then you construct it out of thirds, just like I constructed the tonic triad out of thirds. That may be mind-blowing, maybe not. And then we finish out the octave if we're going to arpeggiate all the way up. So if I copy that, what we're talking about today is when we add the 7th. And then right here, this is the 7th. So I'm going to underline that for you. That's the 7th. Now what you're seeing here is dissonance. Fa to so. The 7th to the root. This is the root. This is also the root. This is the 7th. And then this is the inversion of the 7th, which is the 2nd. We've got our tonic triad. And then we've got, let's put the root down here in the bass as well. And then scale degree 5, and then scale degree 1. And we're going to do our first example where the right hand is just in root position, which is not common. So now let's do that again, and let's put the right hand stuff in a more playable way. So we're going to put all the notes kind of in the same area. And what you've got here is that the G is staying put. Now let's mess with that a little bit more. So we don't usually have melodies that sit on scale degree 5. Melodies tend to hang out around the 3rd or the root of the tonic triad, or scale degree 3 or scale degree 1. So we're going to invert upward. We're going to hang out around the tonic. then here we're going to invert downwards. And hang out on the third scale degree. These are all different versions of one, 5, 7, 1. And then let's give key context for analysis. We've got scale degree 5 going down and then back up when scale degree 5 is in both the tonic triad and in the 5, 7, because it's the fifth of 1 because it's scale degree 5, and it's also the root of the 5 chord. So this is hanging out around the fifth in melody. Over here is the root in melody, or, you know, do, which is scale degree 1. And then over here, we've got the third in melody. Now we've talked about the chord, the 5, 7 chord. We're going to go into the book and we're going to talk about some other things. So the first thing the book talks about is in a minor key, this chord progression is still the same. So in a minor key, we've still got the same chord progression, but the leading tone is an accidental, this B natural. But then sparingly, so what you're seeing here is not as common. We can have a minor triad and minor 7th chord built on scale degree 5. So what you're seeing here is in a minor key, we've got to make sure that the triad itself is major, because then we can lead to scale degree 1 via half step. So what you're seeing is right here how a 5, 7 should look in a minor key versus the less common spelling, which is to not have an accidental. This is a courtesy accidental right here. And we say in the key signature, it's not as functional. When you hear this one, you're going to hear some dissonance that wants resolution, and with this one, you're going to hear it's more sitting and it's not wanting to do anything. That one wants resolution. That one's less passive about wanting a resolution. So we don't really use the minor 5, 7. We use the 5, 7 with a major triad that we borrow from a major key signature. It's borrowed from over here, this one. What we're going to talk about is one thing and one thing only. It's how to resolve a 5, 7 chord in the 4-voice chorale style of part writing, which is what we call common practice. So let's go back to our notes. We've got the 3rd, we've got the 5th, and we've got the 7th, and we also have the root. It's going to make more sense as we go. So we're going to talk about the root in the bass, the root in any other voice, 3rd, 5th, and 7th, regardless of where it is. The solfege of scale degree 5, mind-blowing, is sol. A third up from sol is, I'm looking at my thing here, it's T, and then re, and then fa. This presence of the 7th, which is fa, is what's going to cause the dissonance. The resolution of a root in the bass is resolved to another root, or we could just say another root. So if I'm doing 5, 7 to 1, then I've gone from the root of a 5 chord to the root of a 1 chord. So that means the solfege of the resolved note in the tonic triad is do. If the root is anywhere else, take a look. So we've got sol right here. It is in both chords. It's in 1 and 5, which means we're going to leave it where it is. So let's go ahead and put that in here. We're going to start resolving things. So what we've got here is scale degree 5 to scale degree 1. Bass on root leads to root. So bass on the root of 5 leads to the root of 1. It's really simple. Now, if the root is anywhere else, remember the chord we're looking at is this one right here. Anywhere else, let's put it like right here. Scale degree 5 is going to stay where it is. And we're going to talk about each of these things, and then we're going to put it all together. So you don't need to fully understand everything I'm saying yet. I want you to just sort of absorb what I'm saying. So any other voice on root stays put. Okay? And then over here, now we're going to talk about the third. So if any voice is on the third, it's going to lead up. And the reason for that, I messed with my toolbar for a second, is because of the half-step motion between scale degree 7 and scale degree 1. So let's listen to that real quick. So that's root to root. That stays put because it's a common tone. That right there is leading tone resolution. And in all of these examples, it's the same chord progression we've been playing with the entire time, which is 5-7 to 1. When we talk about resolution today, we're talking about resolution of the 5-7 to the tonic triad. When I say up and down, I'm talking about stepwise motion, by the way. Just like how the leading tone was resolving up via half step to scale degree 1, the fifth of the chord is also going to lead to scale degree 1. The reason for that is we've got 4 notes in the chord, but the chord we're leading to is 3 notes, C, E, G, and the key of C. There's going to be 2 of those parts of the chord that are going to lead to the same exact notes. It's going to happen. 4 notes is going to compress to 3 notes. So right here, we're going to follow half-step motion, just like we did with leading tone resolution, the half-step between scale degree 7 and 1. We're going to do the same thing here, the half-step between scale degree 4 and 3. So the 7th is going to lead down. You might remember that whenever you had scale degree 4 or scale degree 7 in melodic composition, we followed that same tendency, which was following the half steps. So scale degree 7 wanted to go up to scale degree 1 via half step, and scale degree 4 wants to lead downward via half step to scale degree 3. So listen to all of this. Leading tone resolution. Downward whole step. And then here's another half step. So let's say I want to use all of those. So now I've got the bass that is root to root. Now we've got leading tone, which is the 3rd, then we've got the 5th, then we've got the 7th, then we've got root again in a voice that's not the bass. So that root's going to stay put. The 3rd is going to go up via half step. The 5th is going to go down via whole step, which we already have. And then the 7th is going down via half step. T is going to resolve up via half step, and that's going to resolve to do. Re, which is the 5th, is going to resolve down via whole step. And then the only part of the chord it's missing is the 3rd. So let's just put that there and assume that that's the case. Yep, down by half step. I want you to have this handy for yourselves because this is going to be in the exam. But basically, anytime the root is in the bass, the root of the 5-7 chord is going to resolve by finding the root of the 1 chord, or the tonic triad. And that means we're not so much resolving as much as we're just finding the next root. If the root is anywhere else, if scale degree 5 is anywhere else, which is soprano, alto, or tenor, and it tends to not be the soprano because that's not an interesting melody, it's going to stay where it is and be the common tone, because we're going to proceed with our voice leading as much as possible by finding common tones and stepwise motion. And then that means that scale degree 5, or sol, stays as scale degree 5, which is sol. The third of the chord is the leading tone, which is T, and that means it wants to lead to Do via half step. And then Re also wants to find Do via downward whole step. And then the seventh is Fa, which means it's going to lead via half step downward to Mi. This is the case for minor as well. And the only thing that's going to change is that Fa does not lead downward by half step, it leads downward by whole step because scale degree 3 has been lowered. That's the only thing, but we're still following the same tendencies. Are there any questions about that? Because there's only one more thing we're going to talk about today and then we'll be done. So I'm going to give an opportunity for you to ask me questions. Two more things actually, before we move on to some weird things that happens when you resolve the 5/7 chord. And part of that has to do with the fact that in our example, we were doing 5 voices leading to 4, and that's not the way the voice leading works. So again, if you've got any questions, this is your chance to ask them. Okay, if any questions pop up, I will stop talking and I will address the questions. But for now, let's move on. So special problems that arise that if you're using SATB, otherwise known as 4-voice resolution of the chords 5/7 to 1. The above chart is 5 notes leading to 4 notes. That doesn't work if you're doing SATB. So you have to pick You have to pick 4 of them in the 5/7. You can't omit the third, or else we don't know the quality of the triad. So that means we're omitting a root or the 5th. So what's that look like? We're going to go into Sibelius and we're going to take this. We're going to copy and paste it over and over and over. So if I omit the third, we're not hearing a third, so we're not defining the quality of the root triad of that 7th chord. Let's play with this. Yeah, omitting the third, wrong. The only reason that you could have to omit the third of a chord is if you've already established it in your tonality and you're hiding. Over here, we're going to omit the redundant root. And this is all going to be root position, so we're not omitting the root that's in the bass. Here we cannot omit the 7th either. Otherwise, it's not a 7th chord. So, let's move. Let's do this. What? What in the world? What is going on? Okay, let's move this over here. So, we get rid of the 7th. It's no longer a 7th chord. So we can't omit the 7th. So this is all bad. So we can omit the redundant root. And now we've got a G, B, D, F chord. Nothing, we haven't changed the quality of the chord at all. And then here, we're going to omit the 5th. And that is this D here. Bye-bye. Now let's make sure that everything resolves where it should, okay? So if we omit the third and that's wrong, then this all resolves correctly and we end up with a complete voicing of the tonic triad. And we indicate complete voicings by putting a C. If we omit the seventh, it's no longer a seventh chord. And I mean, we could just have D resolve up to E, I guess. That would be fine. So we end up with a complete voicing. The fifth went up. D to E. Now let's look at the good examples, okay? So we've got Ti-Do, Re-Do, Fa, Mi, which means there's no G to stay as a common tone. So what we end up with is an incomplete voicing of the tonic triad. I never said that was bad. And then right here, and this is a complete voicing. So we got a full seventh chord. And you don't need to see the big picture yet, so don't worry that I'm going too fast or anything. I just want you to hear the concepts. So the concept here is if I omit the redundant root, which is the inner voice root, as I call it, one of the top three voices on G, we end up with a complete voicing of the 5/7, leading to an incomplete voicing of the tonic triad. I'm just saying that's a concept. That's a concept, okay? I'm not saying it's good or bad. And then we get right here, if we take out the fifth, the note we're missing is, so when we omit the fifth, we have an incomplete voicing of the 5/7. However, look at the resolution. That's correct. Also correct. Also correct. The common tone is the redundant root. So that ends up leading to, oh, what did I do? A complete voicing of the one chord. So the problem is, in SATB resolution of the 5/7 to 1, either the 5/7 or the 1 has to omit the fifth. So there's an answer to that. There is a way to fix that. So let's talk about it here. If we omit the fifth, if we omit the redundant root, the one chord will be incomplete. Fifth omitted. You've just seen it. Problem. If we want a complete voicing of the one chord, we have to omit the fifth in the 5/7. Incomplete voicing. So how do we fix the problem? Does anyone actually know the answer to that that's watching right now? How do we go from a complete voicing how do we resolve a complete voicing of the 5/7 chord to a complete voicing of the tonic triad? And I want to, as you think about that for a second, I want you to realize that I am not saying that that is the ideal. I'm just saying that it is the most complete sounding, the most full sounding versions of each chord. It sounds great when we do 5 voices because that redundant fifth stays, the redundant root stays there, is the common tone, and now we have the fifth in the tonic triad. That's the most pleasing. We omit the fifth of the 5/7. It's less full sounding, but you result in a full voicing of the tonic triad. If I don't omit that fifth, the redundant what was I saying? If I don't omit the fifth, it sounds nice and full, but it resolves to the tonic triad with no fifth. Does anyone know how we circumvent that problem? And it involves breaking a rule. Yes, I just said breaking a rule. Which rule can we break in order to achieve a complete voicing? So I want you to look at the five voice version right here. What part of this, what rule can we break in this resolution that results in a complete voicing of both chords? And it might help if I put it over here and move some notes around. That might help you. This might help you if I move some stuff around. So what happens? How do I have a complete voicing of the 5/7 chord that resolves to a complete voicing of the tonic triad? I just showed you. It involves the leading tone being in the middle or bottom of the chord, usually the middle, and resolving down to the fifth. Does everyone see that? It wants to do this. We're resolving the third incorrectly to achieve a complete voicing of the tonic triad, because that G right there was only going to happen if we had a G over here. Remember that? Scale degree 5 was only going to happen if we had it over here as well. And that could only happen if we omitted the fifth. But if we omit the fifth, we end up with an incomplete voicing. So what we do is we lead to this G via an incorrect resolution of the leading tone, otherwise known as frustrating the third. Or frustrating the leading tone. So, that is where the leading tone skips down to the fifth of the next chord, or to scale degree 5. That is the way that we fix the problem. We do not have to fix the problem. I cannot stress that enough. We do not have to fix the problem. We can always have an incomplete voicing to a complete voicing, or a complete voicing to an incomplete voicing when we resolve a 7th chord. That is not a problem. It is just a less complete way of voicing a chord. However, if it is a problem to you individually, then this is how you avoid the problem. You frustrate the leading tone. We're resolving the third, the leading tone, incorrectly to 5. We need the 5th and the 5/7, but not omit the... Yeah, we need the 5th and the 5/7, so we omit the redundant root. We also need the 5th and the 1, which is supposed to be led to by the redundant 5th. The 7th and 5th of the 5/7 both lead to the tonic, which means that's our redundancy. So the 5th can resolve down to the tonic. The 7th skips down to the 5th, to the of the tonic. T sol. This is called frustrating the leading tone, because we are frustrating the half-step tendencies of the leading tone to lead via half-step to do. So this is the trick right here. Again, we do not have to do this. We do not have to fix the incomplete complete or complete incomplete problem, but this is the way you would do it if you were writing 4-part harmony and you were frustrated that you could not get a complete voicing of the 5/7 followed by a complete voicing of the tonic triad. So that's as much time as we're ever going to spend on that. It might be a question on the exam and that's it. Now there's one more thing. How do we resolve the 5/7 in 3 parts? Really, really simple. It's simple. It's really, really simple. You need a root and a third to have a chord. 5ths are optional. Everyone got that? And let's be consistent with our formatting. 5ths are optional, like pants during a quarantine. You have 3 voices. You can have the 5th, or you can double the root. Does everyone understand that? You can have the 5th, or you can double the root. That means you could have, wait, 5ths are optional. You need a chord. You need root, third, and 7th. To have a 5/7, okay? 5ths are optional. You have 3 voices. You can have the 5th, or you can double the root on 1. You have no choice on how to voice the 5/7. Omit the 5th. Everyone understand that? So what we're talking about is we're going to put it in Sibelius. We've got these 4 notes. If we're turning this into a 3-note voicing, we need root, we need third, we need 7th. Mind-blowing, right? And let's omit the tenor. Let's not have a tenor. There we go. So, right here. Four voices, we have the luxury of having a complete voicing. 3 voices, the only voice we don't need is the 5th because it doesn't define the quality of the chord. It's the 3rd and the 7th that do that. So we're going to call this 3-voice texture. This is important because this is in the homework. So let's do the same thing with the tonic triad. So there are a few different ways we can do this. So first, First, we're gonna get rid of the redundant roots. That's a CEG chord. That's complete voicing. And over here, we're gonna omit the fifth. This is ugly. There we go. That works. So what we're doing here is omitting the fifth. So check it out. So what we've got here is complete voicing of the 5/7. We're going to omit the fifth because we have no choice. Changed nothing about the chord. Then here we're going to take our voicing of the tonic triad. First, we're going to omit the redundant root so that we're in a complete voicing. The next one, we're going to just omit the fifth. It's still a tonic triad. Complete voicing. Omitted fifth. You notice that it doesn't really sound that different because incomplete voicings are not bad. So, that is what we've got here. 3 parts rather than 4. It's really simple, really simple. You need a root and a third to have a chord. You need root, third, and seventh to have a seventh chord. Or the 5/7 for this semester. Fifths are optional. You have 3 voices. You can have the fifth or you can double the root on one. You have no choice on how to voice the 5/7. Omit the fifth or die, I suppose. I guess that's also a choice. So that is what we've got for this part of the lecture. Now we're going to talk about the textbook, the homework, sorry, real quick, because I've got it there. So the homework that we are doing is page 105. Gray screen. That's the page. There we go. Okay, page 105. How do I get there? Oh, would this do it? That's awesome. Here we go. 105. So the first thing, let's make this. How do I make this not do the thing? Does that, no, that's not it. I don't want that. Oh well. Okay, the first thing is we're going to build chords. Isn't that crazy? So all they're going to do is they're giving you a part of the chord. You're going to build the chord around it. So if they say that this first note is the fifth of a seventh chord, who am I to disagree with them? So I'm going to build the third and root below it and the seventh above it. If they say that that's the third, okay, it's the third. I'm going to build the root a third below it, then I'm going to build my fifth and seventh above it. And we know that it's got to be thirds. So that means if this is a line, they're all lines. If this is a space, they're all spaces. Hey, this G's the seventh of a chord. Okay, sounds good to me. I'm going to build thirds downwards, so E, C, A. The next thing is make sure that the chord is the correct quality. Remember, we're not doing C clef. So this would be G, B, D, F, if D is in fact the fifth, which they claim it is, so I believe them. How do I... Yeah, there we go. How do I... Oh my gosh, this is so bad. Where's the scrolly thing? There it is. Got it. Yeah, so G, B, D, F. I've got to make sure I've got a major triad and that my seventh is a minor seventh in order to be a dominant quality. So G, B, D is a major triad. And then F is a minor seventh. So that would mean that G, B, D, F is in fact a dominant quality or major minor seventh chord. So then I have to find what key is this in. And so I'm going to take the third, find a half step up, and I've got to make sure that that's a major third from the root. Because if it's not, my key's going to be wrong. So you've got to really, really be sure that you've got a major triad at the bottom of these chords. Now go up a half step from the third, and that's what key I'm in. So in the key of C, G, B, D, F is the 5/7. You've got to do that with all of these. Next, we've got analysis. Where's my thing? There it is. No, don't go away. It's an inch. It's like a millimeter between where I'm supposed to be and where I am. There we go. Okay. Come on. Okay. So what we've got here is a chorale that you're supposed to analyze. What I would like for you to do is, for this year's iteration of this homework, don't analyze this. I just want you to find what you believe to be non-chord tones. Does everyone understand that? So if you can look at the shape of this opening chord, you can see that this is a triad with a redundant roots. So F, A, C, F, diatonically speaking. F sharp, A, C sharp, F sharp. We know that that's a triad, which means that this B and this G sharp, those are not part of the chord. So that's all I want you to do is just analyze the non-chord tones, and one other thing, find every time that the 5/7 happens, and then analyze it as such. So we're looking for any time that scale degree 5 gets a 7th chord. You know how we know what scale degree 5 is we count. So in F sharp minor, we're just going to call it diatonic F from now on. F, G, A, B, C. So anytime you see a chord built on C, C, E, G, B are the notes you're looking for to be a 7th chord. So the first time I see that is right here. C, E, G, B. That means that I'm going to analyze this as 5/7. And the only other thing I want you to do is give me parentheses around non-chord tones. Do you think you can handle that? Because I want to make this as simple as possible considering all the craziness going on. You're going to tell me every time a 5/7 occurs, and then you're going to analyze non-chord tones with parentheses, and you don't have to tell me what kind of non-chord tones, because I know that you know. We've already done an entire lecture series on that. Just show me where the non-chord tones are. Over here, for example, one of those is the non-chord tone, so I want you to find which note is actually functioning. It doesn't mean which note is the first one to be there, because being a non-chord tone is not a matter of who was first to be somewhere. It's a matter of which note is functioning. So which note in the key of F sharp minor is the functional note in this chord, where F sharp and E sharp are both vying for attention. And it might be important to note the next note is F sharp. What is the note that leads to F sharp, and does the presence of that note cause the chord to function in a specific way versus it not being there? And then this CEG chord is not a 7th chord, so don't analyze it. I want you to analyze anytime 5/7 happens and give me non-chord tones. We will talk about this Monday of next week, so Tuesday of next week, sorry, so that we can get on the same page about that. Moving on, the next page is super, super simple, because all you're doing is you're just resolving these chords. So this is the part that we just did about 3- and 4-part textures resolving the 5/7 chord. Anytime that they specify C and I, let's zoom in. Do you see that? Anytime they specify C and I, that means that they're telling you exactly what to do. If they've got C followed by C, meaning a complete voicing of 5/7, followed by a complete voicing of the tonic triad, they want you to frustrate the leading tone. That means they want you to take the third of the chord, which here is B natural, and skip down to scale degree 5. Okay? Otherwise, I want you to follow what we talked about in this lecture and get all these chords resolved. Hey, look, it's a 3-part texture. That means you're going to resolve each part of this individually. You're going to arrive on an incomplete voicing of the tonic triad. It's just going to happen because I said so. I mean, if you wanted a complete voicing, then you could frustrate the leading tone in the melody, but that's kind of a no-no, so don't do that. Complete to complete. If they don't say, then they want you to, well, let's see. How many times did they not say? It sure looks like every time it's a 4-part structure, they're specifying. Except right here, no. Yeah, they're specifying every time it's 4 voices, which means if it goes I to C or C to I, then it wants you to just follow the chart that I made for you. I want you to follow this chart, okay? If it says C to C, it wants you to frustrate the leading tone, okay? Okay. That's that page of the homework. And then finally, there's one more page of homework, which is 117. Let me look at 117 because I have a hunch I might say don't do it. Yeah, don't do it. Don't do page 117 this year. And if you turn in page 117, that means you didn't watch my lecture.